Welcome to Land of the Bible. I'm David Sussman, your personal tour guide here in the land of Israel. And in this week's episode, timing with the Israeli holiday of Shavuot, we are going to explore the biblical grounds of Ein Yael. Ein Yael is located on the outskirts of Jerusalem in the beautiful Rephaim Valley. And nestled here in these enchanted forests, one can walk down Roman period streets and see the buildings that they lived in nearly 2,000 years ago. But that's not the only archaeology. Much of the archaeology that's been revealed here dates back to the biblical period, to the First Temple period, focusing primarily on the irrigation systems and how people 3,000 years ago farmed this area. But it's not just an archaeological site. In addition to the wonderful ruins here, it's also a living, active museum. What do I mean by that? Well, as you walk through its streets, you'll notice several people dressed up in costumes from the Roman period, or as we as Jews here refer to as the Mishnaic period. The Mishnaic period is the period of time where the great sages, the rabbis of the time, decided they would take the oral tradition, the oral Torah, and put it down on a piece of parchment known as the Mishnah. But it's not just witnessing these people practice their professions, how to make sandals and bow and arrows, pottery, and so much more. But you as the visitor get to actually participate in much of those activities. As they say here in Ein Yael, they want you leaving smiling, dirty, and tired. Let's now go visit Ein Yael. As I mentioned earlier, here in Israel this week we celebrated the holiday of Shavuot, which in English is the Pentecost holiday, which coincides with the wheat harvest. So here during this time in Ein Yael, individuals can take stalks of wheat, literally bring it to the threshing floor, separate the grain from the stalk, bring it over here, grind that grain into flour, mix it with some water, a little bit of salt, forming their own dough, which they'll flatten out and then put onto this hot pan over here that has a fire raging underneath it, and cook their own bread. So it's really an unbelievable experience for one to learn how bread is made from the harvest to the table. Among the many industries that existed here during biblical times, olive oil production was one of the main ones. Now what would happen is in all of these terraced areas, the terrace farming, they would grow olive trees, and in the season pick it at the right time and bring it to this device over here. And how it would work is you would dump your basket of olives into the crushing area, and then either your employees, slaves maybe, or a beast of burden, or your friendly tour guide would turn this log around, moving the crushing stone and literally crushing the olives, and all of the liquid would come out. Oil, water, and it would go into a big vat, and that's where it would separate, and you would remove the water and you'd be left with this wonderful olive oil. Now, at the end, there was still a lot of juice left in the olives. So they would scoop up all the olives, put it into baskets, and then there was 2 more stations in order to try and squeeze out every drop of olive oil. Each time you press it, the quality of the oil becomes less. So the first pressing, that's the best olive oil. That's what would be used on your salads and to dip your bread and for consumption. And then the second pressing, it could be consumed, but it'd be a little bit gritty. It wouldn't taste as nice. And most likely that was used for healing. Maybe skin ointment for your hair to make soap out of. And then last but not least, the final pressing, you definitely would not want to consume this. And it was most likely used for lighting in oil lamps. So let's go now, take a look at those other devices and continue exploring more of Ein Yael.
There are moments in life that define you and leave you forever transformed. Like a once-in-a-lifetime journey to the source of your faith. Walk in the steps of Jesus and experience history beyond its words. Sail the ancient Sea of Galilee to the holy shores of the River Jordan. Your journey begins here.
Another incredible aspect about this place is that beyond just being an active living museum, the streets here, the buildings, the industry is literally built out of or on top of the ancient ruins, some of them dating back as far as the First Temple period and as early as the 2nd century of the Common Era. I'm now standing in a Roman period villa that was built nearly 1900 years ago, and we know that this villa must have belonged to an extremely wealthy Roman. The reason being is that the entire size of the villa and the farming area around it comes to roughly 70,000 square meters. Just the living quarters alone, just the villa itself is 2,000 square meters, comprised of several rooms, some of them containing beautiful mosaics. We're now going to speak to an expert here at Ein Yael to learn more about this very impressive Roman villa. Come with me. We are now joined by the General Director of Ein Yael, Oded Regev, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the history of this villa. Oded, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Great to have you here.
So tell me, Oded, why would this wealthy Roman man build his villa in this location?
It's not far from Jerusalem. It has water, and water is very important here in the Middle East. Wherever there is water, somebody will use it. And as it's not far from Jerusalem, first of all, we can bring fresh fruits and vegetables from here on a donkey, an hour ride, and you are in Jerusalem. So you have to have it around here. You can't have it too far away. Secondly, it's for the person who lives here. He can go to Jerusalem and work there or meet his friends and then come back to his country house. Again, an hour ride. It's very comfortable, it's very easy. And we can see he was a wealthy person who really not only enjoyed this area, but also became even wealthier by growing things here.
Incredible. And tell me, why would archaeologists come here in the first place? How did they know to dig here?
Because there is water here. There is water here, the vicinity of Jerusalem. These are hints that will bring you the treasure you would like to find here as an archaeologist. We have here remains from the Roman times, which we will see, but also we have remains from more ancient times, like from the First Temple time, the biblical era, and even recent findings from the Arab times.
Let's walk over to those First Temple period ruins, as our viewers would love to know more about the Bible period.
Great, let's walk.
Before we look at the actual ruins dating back to the First Temple period with our expert Oded, I want to describe to you how biblical irrigation systems worked. And in order to understand that, we need to realize that the mountains here in Jerusalem is formed primarily of limestone. Limestone is a very, very porous stone that can absorb the rainwater. Once it absorbs the rainwater, it will flow through naturally formed channels and caverns in the mountain due to karstic activity from the various plant life growing in this area. Then, due to gravity, you have springs beginning to form. Biblical man found these springs and channeled the water through a series of pools to sort of naturally filter that water, ultimately leading to one large reservoir where they could control the water exiting that pool of water through a series of aqueducts that would lead to plots of land that were built or formed by terraces. These terraces and these plots of land can grow an incredible amount of produce. Let's now take a look at the model behind me to get a better understanding of this system that I just explained to you, and then we'll go with Oded to the actual ruins dating back to the First Temple period. So Oded, I understand that this wall and these stones we see just over here date back to the biblical period. Can you tell us a little bit about its construction?
Everywhere where there was mountains and water, and you needed to have agriculture in ancient times, you had those terraces. All around the Judea mountains, Judea hills, you'll see those ancient terraces. In places like Ein Yael, we could date those terraces back to biblical times. They were used hundreds and thousands of years, but they started building them in those biblical times. You can see it from the size of the stones, the style of the structure, that you have different styles, different periods of builders build those terraces. But they started in biblical times and they're still using them even today in some places around here, like in Ein Yael, in other sites.
One thing I still haven't grasped yet is why did they need to build the terraces in the first place?
You need to challenge the slopes. You can't grow on very steep slopes of soil. You need to keep the soil intact while the water is falling down. So you need to build the terraces. Terraces is a very, very logical solution to this problem. So you have those terraces here, and until the modern times they've been used, and they were used very successfully.
So basically these terraces are here to prevent erosion.
Prevent erosion and make agriculture possible.
Incredible. And how many of these walls do you have here in Ein Yael?
We have miles of them. You have miles and hundreds of miles all around Israel. We have about, I would say, 10 or 15 miles of terraces all around.
Amazing. We're now going to head over to the Roman marketplace in the ancient Roman street in order to see some of the activities that Ein Yael provides for tourists. If we need any assistance, will you join us over there?
Happily. We are very proud of it.
Fantastic. Let's continue now to the Roman marketplace.
There are moments in life that define you and leave you forever transformed. Like a once-in-a-lifetime journey to the source of your faith. Walk in the steps of Jesus and experience history beyond its words. Sail the ancient Sea of Galilee to the holy shores of the River Jordan. Your journey begins here.
Whenever I ask visitors who've come here to Ein Yael, they always tell me that their highlight was the Roman marketplace that I just walked through. It features a number of storefronts as well as individuals practicing their ancient professions. Everything from the weaver to the basket maker, the potterer, the cobbler. They even have a blacksmith here that heats up his fires in the ancient ways and is making arrows that are going to be used in the archery exhibit. Let's take a closer look at some of those people practicing those professions. One of the hottest attractions here at the Roman marketplace is the blacksmith. And the reason why is in order to get that sheet iron red hot so we can manipulate the shape, the fire needs to get as high as 1200 degrees Celsius. In order to do that, they have this machine over here called a bellows. And they just reach up here and it literally blows the air through the fire, making it extremely hot. Just watch them place that iron inside. And in just a few moments of me using this bellows and the air going in become red hot, the iron will itself become red hot as well. As my friend heats up the iron sheet, I'm gonna take it out when it's red hot. I'm gonna use this anvil right here, place it on top, and use my trusty hammer to sharpen out the end of it in order to make a nail. It's ready? Ooh, that is hot. So I place it over here. You can see it's red hot. And I'm just gonna sharpen up that edge. There we go. Oh yeah, that's looking good. So now that the arrowhead is cut and completely hot, I can just take my nail over here, put it into the anvil, and flatten out my top. Now I gotta cool it off in the water. Whoo, that is hot. So now that I've cooled off my nail, I can take it out and show you this incredible ancient Roman style nail that I literally just made using sheet iron and a really hot fire. Let's now go visit the potterer. Another fun attraction here at Ein Yael is the potter's wheel, where people could come and experience what it was like to make pottery 2,000 years ago. Now you have to remember, 2,000 years ago, they didn't have electricity. So in order to spin the potter's wheel, you had to do it with your feet, because the clay that you're using had to be moving at all times. But where did the clay come from? Here in Ein Yael, both today as well as 2,000 years ago, you couldn't find any workable clay. So the people had to scout out the area in order to find proper material that they could use. And the closest place here in Jerusalem is in a place called Moza. But they went as far south in the Negev desert to a place called Machtesh Ramon. Now, for the rest of it, I'm gonna bring in Tzuri, who's the professional here at Ein Yael, to give me a hand. Tzuri, zev shar la'azor li? Great, so what's the next step? Again, okay. I gotta put my hands in the water. Okay. So now I'm getting my hands wet and I'm coating the clay with water. And now I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on my clay, trying to make it a little bit smooth using the palm of my hand. And now I'm gonna wet my hands again. And now, after the clay is centered, I'm gonna open it up with my thumbs in the middle. So now, after I've extended this up and held out in the middle, I basically have myself a beautiful bowl. Voila. Let me show my viewers at home the beautiful bowl that I made. Tzuri, thank you so much for your help. Let's continue to discover more here in Ein Yael. So one of the more popular activities here in Ein Yael, especially with the kids, is archery. They teach you how people 1800 years ago may have hunted for their food, but also how they defended the villages and cities that they lived in. So let's give it a shot here. These bow and arrows were also handmade here in Ein Yael. And bullseye.
There are moments in life that define you and leave you forever transformed. Like a once-in-a-lifetime journey to the source of your faith. Walk in the steps of Jesus and experience history beyond its words. Sail the ancient Sea of Galilee to the holy shores of the River Jordan. Your journey begins here.
The shop I'm standing in now is the local tavern. And the local tavern in Roman times was a place that travelers or locals could come to and literally get a happy meal. What do I mean by that? This was a fast food restaurant where people would come in, approach the counter, and all along the counter you would have these spots that large pots of stew would be brewing, if you will, on a fire down below. You could find different types of stews, drinks, whatever it is that you are looking for. Over here you can see them using the ladle in order to pour out some of the stew that would be cooking here. One of the staples in Jerusalem 1800 years ago, as well as today, as you can see right here, would be garbanzo beans, which you use to make hummus. In addition to the tavern, this place would also have a bakery. Let's take a look at the bakery. During the Roman period and even before, people would get up before the crack of dawn to separate their grain, grind it up in order to produce flour, which they would use to make dough. That dough would be formed into unbaked loaves of bread, which they would then bring to the bakery in order to be baked in the oven you can see behind me. Now, a typical bakery in a village or small city, you might literally be baking hundreds of loaves of bread every day. So how would you differentiate the loaves of bread, say, from my loaf of bread and your loaf of bread? So the baker would take a stamp and literally affix a stamp to the loaf of bread. And when I came back an hour later, or maybe at the end of the day after I'm done working in the fields, I would retrieve my particular loaf of bread based on the stamp that I was given. Let's continue as we tour this Roman village. We're now in the pottery store where a potter would display the various types of pottery that people could commission. However, here at Ein Yael, it doesn't only feature the pottery, it also features what's known as a fresca. A fresca is a wall painting. Now you see, the same things that make us tick today made ancient man tick as well. And they wanted to beautify the homes that they lived in. So today, most of our houses are made out of wood, but we don't actually see the wood that the house is built out of. What do we see? We see drywall, wallpapering, or on the outside aluminum siding or brick, whatever the facade might be. 2,000 years ago, the houses were built out of stone, but the people living there would never actually see the stone that the house was built out of because a thick layer of plaster would be applied to those stones. And then as the plaster is drying, a painter would come and paint beautiful pictures on the wall. So the paint would be absorbed by the plaster that's drying, leaving a wall painting that wasn't able to be removed. It was permanent, leaving this permanent wall painting durable and gleaming and good enough to last, well, sometimes, as we can see, for thousands of years. Join us next time on Land of the Bible as we discover one of Israel's natural wonders, Maktesh Ramon. We will explore its crater by jeep and learn about its geology and its humble beginnings as a mining town to its development as one of Israel's most pristine national parks. Thank you for joining us on our tour of Ein Yael. Remember, I'm David Sussman, your personal tour guide here in the land of Israel. Make sure to join us next time as we connect you to the people, places, and land of the Bible.